Hey, welcome into the Stinkin Truth podcast. Mark Schlarth alongside Mike Evans. Thank you so much for downloading, for listening, for liking, for subscribing, whatever it is you do there on the YouTube machine. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. We got some controversy going on in the NFL. Andrew Luck, remember him? Remember Andrew Luck?
Ye of the neck beard.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on neck beards? I would think that somebody in that locker room would have the guts to walk up to an Andrew Luck and go, dude, what are you doing?
What is the allure? Unless you're really curly and you get the ingrown hairs on your neck. You know, you see the guys with all the little bumps on their neck because they got the curly curls. It's like the pubic hair underneath your chin, and you get the little, ingrown hairs. Maybe that's to like grow it out so you don't get so many ingrown hairs from shaving. But other than that, I can't really understand what the allure of the neckbeard is.
Well, Andrew Luck clearly,
because he is a handsome fella. He is one handsome-looking dude,
and his voice is so melodious.
Yes, melodious.
Yeah,
very nice.
But he clearly walks to the beat of his own drummer, right? He's a different cat, as evidenced by the fact that he walked away from the NFL. But the Colts have raised an issue with the NFL about possible tampering. So when Luck retired, he had 3 seasons remaining on his contract, and the contract told after his departure. So it kind of kept rolling over, meaning that if he were to
told, like T-O-L-D?
T-O-L-L-E-D, told, yeah.
What did I say? T-O-L?
Yeah,
told?
We've been having that conversation.
T-O-L-L-E-D?
Yeah, like a toll, like you pay a toll.
Oh, like a toll. Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Like
I get it. Like a toll road.
Tolled. Okay. Anyhow.
How about it just continued? In perpetuity.
Go with that.
Okay.
Meaning if he were to resume his NFL career, he would remain under contract to the Colts. And any improper contact by another club could constitute a violation of the NFL's anti-tampering policy. And the Colts have asked the NFL to look into the possibility that the Commanders were sniffing around Andrew Luck.
Well, I mean, is it like, hey, what are you doing? Have any interest in playing again? Is that tampering?
Yes.
I didn't offer you a contract. I just asked if you were interested.
Yeah, but that's like recruiting. What if he says yes?
Then you contact the Indianapolis Colts to see if you can work out a trade.
What if that's news to the Colts that Andrew Luck is thinking about playing again?
Well, why didn't they ask him? That just seems like sour grapes to me by Jim Irsay. Doesn't it just seem like dude, you don't think in passing you bump into Andrew Luck at whatever Andrew Luck is doing at a beard convention or whatever, he's at the Abraham Lincoln, like
one of those Civil War reenactments?
Right. You take your family to a Civil War reenactment. You're a GM of the Washington Commanders. It's right there in Annapolis. Yeah. And you're like, hey, man, that looks like Andrew Luck.
Is that Andrew Luck playing dead there in Gettysburg?
Right, exactly. And you're like, hey, dude. You tap him on the shoulder and you're like, when you're done playing dead, are you interested in playing football?
I would think that Jim Irsay and the Colts have had this conversation with Andrew Luck every year. They check in, right? Wouldn't you think?
You would think.
Yes,
call up.
Yeah. How you doing? Any thoughts about coming back?
Right.
Sure.
How you feeling?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
Did you think
like how thorough is that investigation going to be?
No, I don't think it'll be that thorough. But did you think Andrew Luck would, when he stepped away in 2019, did you think it would last this long?
Or did no, I thought he was going to come back. I did think he was going to come back. But obviously the door's still open. It just shows you the desperation of the quarterback position in the National Football League right now.
Right.
Like Andrew Luck is beat up. Now, he's a damn good player, don't get me wrong, but beat up, walked away, couldn't stay healthy, on and on it goes. And yet there are still teams looking at Andrew Luck. What, he hasn't played since 2019, you said?
Yeah. Sign me up, right?
That you look at him, hasn't played since 2019, and that's a better option than the people you have in your building.
Who would you rather have? Andrew Luck, having sat out for the last 4 years, or Sam Howell?
Yeah, that's a great Sam Howell. When you hear Sam Howell, what do you think of? Instantly, I think of Gilligan's Island.
Okay.
Thurston Howell.
Thurston Howell.
Right.
Yes.
The third.
Right.
That's what I think of.
Lovey.
Yeah. I'm sorry. He does.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a deep pull. I mean, we've got like 3 people here backstage watching this who have no idea
Who Thurston Howell is?
They have no idea.
Well, you need to watch Gilligan's Island.
All
then.
right. I mean, Ginger and Marianne. I suggest you look that up, YouTube that, and then report back to me.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have Sam Howell as your guy that you're counting on, regardless of, the folks and you talk to Ron Rivera, you talk to some of the other people within that organization, they love Sam Howell. They think that Sam Howell has got great potential. But what do we always say in the NFL about potential, or in professional sports about potential? Potential will get you fired, and potential is a 4-letter word. So, I mean, it's great to have, some chutzpah in practice and to chuck the ball down the field and to scramble around and make some big-time throws against, the scout team when you're the look squad quarterback. But there's a difference between doing that in practice and doing that in games. And so, yeah, I mean, I would totally – I mean, you would think about Andrew Luck, and they're – like, if you thought about Andrew Luck, how many different teams in the league right now –
Oh, wow.
would you look at and say he would be an upgrade over what we have currently in our building? In the AFC, there'd only be a handful of teams where he would be considered an upgrade. When you think about all the quarterbacks in the AFC right now?
Right. But in the NFC?
The NFC is wide open.
Top 3 right away?
After Hurts, Prescott, who else is in the NFC? Carr.
We might be leaving somebody out.
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Geno Smith.
You wouldn't kick the tires on?
Yeah, I would.
I would too.
Yeah.
I would too.
By the way, while we're talking about levels of quarterback, have you caught Kyle Brandt's QB tiers?
No.
He's got different. So he put all the quarterbacks in the AFC and NFC in different tiers.
Okay.
Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Typically it's a. He went to a whole nother level in the AFC. He's got 7 tiers of quarterbacks.
What, 7 tiers?
7 tiers. And there are only 16 teams.
Right.
But he's got 7 tiers. So, like, for example, he's got 1 quarterback in the top tier.
All right. No, okay, I get that you would put, I'm assuming Mahomes is in Tier 1.
Yes, he's by himself.
But what about Burrow? Burrow wouldn't be in Tier 1?
I would put Burrow in Tier 1. Would you put Josh Allen in Tier 1? But I guess the idea is he believes that Mahomes belongs by himself. And who can really argue with that?
Okay,
at this
well,
point?
all right. So if you're going to go Mahomes by himself in Tier 1, wait a minute, 7 tiers?
7 tiers. So
it's a lot of. Everybody's got. Why not 16 tiers? Everybody has
their own tier, right?
Right. Every guy's.
So just pop in when you disagree with something. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Tier 2, he has Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Just those 2.
What about Aaron Rodgers?
Fair question. But new to the Jets. Maybe you want to see how he does with the Jets before you put him up into that tier.
Does that change the quarterback that you're getting? Does it change the way that the guy has played, winning a bunch of MVPs over the last 4 or 5 years?
Because every quarterback who moves to a new team, it's seamless. Russell Wilson. That's where you say, good point. Touche.
Yeah,
well said.
Okay, but I've never thought that Russell Wilson was as good as Aaron Rodgers.
No, but you did not think it would be that rough of a first year for Russ.
No, that was okay, touche. Like that was as bad as anything I've ever seen.
Well, then see what you think about this. So Kyle Brandt, again, NFL Network, Good Morning Football, has in his 3rd tier Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert.
Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert.
So I guess my question is, any one of those 3 do you believe should be up in Tier 2? And is there anybody else missing from Tier 3?
Right. I think I've already said.
You'd put Rodgers up there.
Rodgers up. If
What
you're
about
just
Lamar?
going.
What about Lamar? He's going to throw for 6,000 yards this year.
See, that would automatically, for me, drop him a tier.
Why?
Dude, you just don't come out and say you're going to throw for 6,000 yards.
He said he could throw for 6,000 yards now. That he's got weapons that he hasn't had before, and that he could throw for 6,000 yards.
That's Deshaun Kaiser coming out in the draft several years ago and saying, I've got the brains of Aaron Rodgers the brains of Tom Brady and the body of Cam Newton. Instantly off my draft board. You're stupid. The fact that you would come out and say, hey, now I'm going to throw where I've never thrown for more than 3,200 yards.
Correct. Now he's going to double it. I'm
going to double my yardage total because I got a guy off of his second ACL or whatever in Odell Beckham Jr. That's foolishness. That's silly talk.
Tier 4, Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson.
Ugh.
Well, okay.
Well, I mean, how can you put
to our Denver fans and Cleveland fans watching right now? What does mean?
Well, how can you? Okay, so now we're breaking this up like every guy gets his own tier. How can you even put? How could you put Russell Wilson over Tua in the season Tua had? How could you put Russell? How? Seriously,
Trevor Lawrence.
Right? How can
Trevor Lawrence is not in these top 4 tiers?
How could you put Russell Wilson above just about anybody in the AFC?
Well, you believe that Russell Wilson's going to bounce back.
I do.
You believe last year was an aberration.
I do, but if you watched last year, you couldn't put him. Well, I guess that
you're
uses
projecting.
You're Russell Wilson. Who's behind?
All right, so those are the 2 quarterbacks in level 4, tier 4. Tier 5, Jimmy Garoppolo, all by himself.
Okay, it was way better than Russell Wilson last year, although he's injured a lot.
Well, yeah, but you're projecting what you think is going to happen this year.
Does it say that in the tiers?
Yeah. No, but that's what I'm.
No,
it's always about looking ahead.
Okay, so who else?
All right, number 6 tier, Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, Tua, and Trevor Lawrence.
Wait a minute, who's only Jimmy Garoppolo in tier 5?
Yeah.
You got one tier 5 quarterback?
Yes. So he decides that Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, Tua, and Trevor Lawrence will not have as good a season as Jimmy Garoppolo. Otherwise, they'd be in the same tier. That is that's curious.
There's a lot of tiers.
And then finally, tier 7, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson.
T.J. Stroud, Will Levis. Where is? Oh, wait a minute.
AFC.
AFC, yeah. I was going to say Bryce Young, but he went to Carolina, right?
Correct. Boy, you really follow the draft.
Like a steel trap, Mike.
Like a steel trap.
Like a steel trap.
So, anyway, it's one person's opinion. It's something you're going to.
How many people would you put in tier? Like, if let's break it down. Let's do it traditionally instead of 14 tiers for 16 quarterbacks. Let's do it traditionally. Give me 4 tiers. Okay,
just 4 tiers.
Just 4 tiers. Like normally, there's tier 1, tier 2, and then your tier 3 is, hey, we can survive with a guy, but we're looking to replace him. And tier 4 is, this guy didn't have a chance.
All right. Personally, I go Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes in tier 1.
Okay.
We agreement?
Yeah, I could probably put Rodgers in there, but yeah, I'll go with those 2 guys.
Tier 2, I would go Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Herbert, and Jackson. Would you put Jackson in tier 2? I don't think you would. You don't like Lamar.
I do like Lamar.
Well, you just told me what you thought about his saying he's going to throw for 6,000 yards as being an automatic disqualification.
Yeah, you're right. That drops him out of tier 2.
So
you can't be in tier 2 if you say something ridiculous.
So tier 2 is Allen, Rodgers, and Herbert.
There's got to be who else we got in there? Give me some other names.
Well, then you're talking about Lamar, Russell, Deshaun. I'd put Trevor Lawrence in.
Now, I'm not ready to give Trevor Lawrence tier 2. Not until he cuts that Joe Dirt hair.
Oh, I love the hair.
Joe Dirt, he doesn't have he has no flow. It's way too poker straight.
No, I like it.
I do not like it.
I like it.
I don't like it.
So we're only going with Allen.
Although it is the perfect hair for Jacksonville.
Yes.
Have you been down to Jacksonville?
No, you always have nice things to say about Jacksonville.
Jacksonville is an interesting town.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's nice.
Do say, do tell.
Yeah, no, it's just it's you show up in Jacksonville and you're like, really? There's an NFL city here, huh? But yeah, I wouldn't put him in tier 2 either.
Tier 2, it's just Allen, Rodgers, and Herbert. So then tier 3 gets big.
Yeah, tier 3 would
then
be
becomes Lamar, Trevor,
yeah,
Deshaun, Garoppolo.
Okay.
Would you put Russell Wilson in tier 3?
I think you, based on 9 or 10 I think you'd have to. Last year was just an abject disaster.
Okay.
So I think you'd have to put him in that tier 3.
And would you put Jimmy Garoppolo in tier 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, obviously if he's not injured, boy, that does make it.
Would you put Tua in tier 3?
No.
No.
Tua, well, yeah, I guess I would put. Yeah, I'd put Tua in tier 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that would be the cutoff. And then I would go tier 4 would be everyone else. Pickett, Mac Jones, and then the rookies. Fair?
Yeah, I think we've solved.
Big tier 3. So if you're a fan of one of those tier 3 quarterbacks, it's like, okay, are you ready to make the jump to get up to tier 2, which is where you have to be at a minimum if your team's going to be any kind of a threat in the AFC, right?
See, Jackson, you'd have a hard time keeping Lamar Jackson at tier 2, even with the 6,000-yard comment. But yeah, I might have to move him up on just pure athleticism and what he's been able to do from that position. But either way, I mean, I wouldn't smirk at him being in a tier 2.
One of the reasons why you're upbeat on the idea of Russell Wilson bouncing back is because Sean Payton's in charge.
Yeah.
And already things are different over there in Bronco land, huh?
Yeah. Oh.
Your spies. You got spies.
Yeah. So, like, I always think the way you run the organization, the way you operate within the organization, obviously very important. And, I've been places over the last 5 or 6 years, traveling around Fridays, being at the home team's facility, watching practice, being in their building, and all those kind of things that go on. And there's this kind of separation of church and state, if you will. Like when you're downstairs, meaning the locker room, the cafeteria, the weight room, that's for essential football personnel only, or should be. The good organizations, that's just the way it operates. Like the guy from the business office isn't getting a quick sweat in the weight room that the players use. Get the out of here, right? Like, who let this guy in? Right?
Hey, Kenny Pickett, can you give me a spot?
Yeah. Going for a personal max here, 185. Right?
Right.
Hey, when you're done fucking around, get out of the gym, man. I gotta get some work done.
Right.
Like that kind of thing, right?
Right.
So I've been at the Broncos facility on a Friday, preparing for a game, watching practice, meeting with the coaches, meeting with the players.
I'm sorry, but before, what are Friday practices supposed to be? What are teams? How important is a Friday practice?
Friday practice is essentially a dress rehearsal.
Okay.
So really what you're trying to get done is you're trying to be on the field and off the field as quickly as possible without any repeats. You want to make sure that you go through practice each period, whether it's base, it's nickel, it's blitz pickup, it's red zone, it's short yardage goal line. You want to go bam, 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 bam. If it's 5 plays, it's 5 plays that are run to precision with quickness, without repeats. No offsides, no drop balls, no like that thing needs to hum, and you shouldn't be on the field for more than an hour and 25 to hour and 30 minutes. Like that's how it's supposed to operate. And you don't need non-essential people hanging around practice. You don't need a bunch of suits out there. And so I've been over there and, you walk in after practice, you get some lunch before you start the meetings or whatever. And I've seen like people from the business office entertaining clients or whatever. Like, I've seen this in several places I've gone to around the league. I did a game in Miami where there must have been, 15 different business suits on the sideline on a Friday practice. I'm watching practice going, Mike Shanahan would absolutely blow a gasket if this was going on during a Friday practice. And so I understand that, like, non-essentials have been basically excommunicated from downstairs. Like, dude, you don't need to come in Friday in hopes to see Russell Wilson eating lunch so you can introduce him to your clients. Like, that's unacceptable. It's for players, it's for coaches, it's for the equipment staff, the training staff, and the weight room staff. That's what downstairs is for. Not so you can, run a couple of clients or come down and get a couple of autographs for the kids. That stuff, there are people, when I played for both Washington and Denver, there are people in the front offices that I wouldn't know, heard their names. I wouldn't know their face. I couldn't put their face to their name. Like, that's how it's supposed to be run. My understanding is Sean Payton has come in there and put his foot down. Non-essentials aren't allowed downstairs. You go through the entrance in the front of the building that you go through, and never the two shall meet.
Because as you describe it, I can imagine plenty of people are watching this, listening to this, saying, "Come on, is it really that big of a deal? How much does that matter when it comes to winning football games on a Sunday?" But you're telling me, and you travel all around the NFL, so you see all these different buildings. You're telling me it is cut and dried. It is black and white. That the teams that adhere to this idea that, hey, only essential football people, they're the ones that tend to be the successful ones, whereas the ones that, hey, it's a free-for-all, they tend to be the bad teams. Is it that cut and dried?
No, it's probably not that cut and dry, but it's all kind of stacking. It's like the building blocks of creating a good franchise. This is what's expected of us as a football team, and I don't want to take your focus away from what you're doing for 2 seconds. The other thing I don't want to do is invade on your personal space, your kind of quote-unquote sanctuary. Like, in the locker room that you've got a media session from whatever to whatever. And a lot of guys hide. They just don't go in the locker room at that time. They hide in other places of the building. So if I'm trying to get away from the media and hide in the weight room, and I go into the weight room or I go into the cafeteria to hide from the media, and there's 14 business people in there, like, now I got to find a different place to hide. Now I got to go in the training room. Like that stuff matters. That should be a sanctuary for players. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it is the way it is. And the other thing is, man, when you and I are together and we're in the locker room, I should be able to flip you a bunch of grief. You should be able to flip it back without having to worry about being politically correct and somebody, like, it's true. It's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And like, I for one, I look at little things like that. Little things become big things. That's a little thing that, one, establishes this is who we are as an organization. This is the way we do our business. And this is just one more way that Sean Payton will take care of his players. And that matters, because it matters the way you run your organization, the way you demand from your coaches, the way you demand from the organization. But also, Sean is notorious for being, some would call him a tyrant, mm-hmm. but for being a hard ass and making sure things get done the right way, but also for taking care of his players.
Yeah, you've mentioned that was one of the keys to his success in New Orleans, was that he was really good at instilling that fear. There was no doubt who was in charge, but yet still hugely popular with the players, because he really took care of the players and tried to take care of the players and look out for the players. And we had one of our people who cover the Broncos say, occasionally a Sean Payton thunderstorm will roll through that building, but all in all, right, he's pretty chill when it comes to the players, and this would seem to be an example of that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I think that you can't understate, like, when you're building a culture. We always talk about, you got to build this culture, you got to do this, you got to, like, all those little things manifest into big things. And those little things, like, now I can go into the cafeteria and I can bring my playbook in there, eat lunch and study something without having to worry about somebody, leaning over my shoulder and looking at it. Right? That matters. That stuff to me that's important stuff. And then again, that kind of feeling of this is our little private sanctuary. It's our little private, kind of players club, if you will. And I think all that stuff, studying, like you could just have a real live, honest conversation, sitting there having lunch about football without worrying about giving up trade secrets. Like, who's this guy sitting over here with who's the dude in the business suit with 4 kids and family members and having lunch? I don't know them. So now all of a sudden, you and we're trying to have a real live football conversation. You're like, hey man, we got to keep this to ourselves.
Right.
And then you go in the locker room, something else happens, and now this important football conversation that you're about to have to really discuss, whatever the concept is. And I can't tell you how many of these conversations I have. Like, I used to, identifying the mic. Like, identifying the mic backer. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many guys struggle to identify the mic and how simple it is?
Yeah, quarterback comes to the line. We all see it every Sunday. Hey, 56 the mic.
Right. And they re-identify the mic based upon how they want you to turn protection where they want you to go to. So, I used to just tell guys this all the time. Like, identifying the mic is easy. Can you count to 2? Well, yeah, I can count to 2. Okay, do it for me. Okay, let me give you this. Right. I'll give you this test. Mike, can you count to 2?
Sure.
Okay, do it.
1, 2.
Okay, perfect. You can do it, right? So number 2 is essentially going to be the mic. Meaning that if you're in a 3 linebacker set, either side you start from, whoever the outside player, the outside linebacker or nickel guy, if you're in a nickel defense, that's 1, okay? So that is, let's call him the Will, okay? That's 1. 2 is the Mike. 3 is the Sam. Okay, let's start from the other side, the strong side. 1 is the Sam. 2 is the Mike. 3 is the Will. It's pretty simple, right? So, but a lot of guys will try to memorize numbers. Like, okay, 56 can be the Mike. His backup is 52, and his backup is 54. Well, what happens if 47 comes in and they're playing penny? you're like, then who's the Mike? I don't know. Like, it's pretty easy. Let's just start counting our number count stuff.
Right.
But you're having these conversations, especially with young guys that haven't played, and you're like, hey man, this is an easy way to figure this out. And oftentimes it's deeper concepts, from a protection standpoint or what I'm looking at. But do you feel comfortable having that conversation in the cafeteria when there's 14 business people in there? Probably not.
Okay. All right.
So just little things like that matter.
So if you're a Broncos fan, this is good stuff.
It's really good stuff.
What you're hearing.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, the next time we talk, big event coming up later this week.
Schedule release show. And I don't know how you are.
I love it.
I know.
I can't wait for the schedule to come out. Start looking at the games.
Right, the matchups.
Putting W's and L's next to everybody. And I
always just look at I don't know. I hate going, that's a win, that's a win, that's a win, that's a loss, because you're never right. But
you end up being kind of close.
I always look at it and go, that's a 9-7 team, or that's 8-8. That's it. Yeah, you're usually pretty close, right?
How do you get to 9-7 or 8-8?
But when you go win, loss, you're never right. It's always they lose one they should win, they win one they should lose. But yeah, I can't wait for the schedule release. It's just another way the NFL dominates the landscape of sports.
As I've joked on this podcast many times, the NFL is a 365-day-a-year beast that needs to be fed. And this is one of the ways of doing it.
And there's no question. Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth podcast, we thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with you after the schedule gets released right here on the Stinkin Truth podcast.